In the 1980s, a philosophical war was being waged in the NFL. Some saw it as East Coast versus West, others as smash mouth versus finesse. It was an era when many believed that might made right.
Come on, run with power, run with some power.
That the run was better than the pass, and the sword mightier than the chalk. But this wasn't the first time Bill Walsh's offense was challenged by the old guard.
When what is now known as the West Coast offense was being developed, it was summarily dismissed by many people as nothing more than nickel and dime football.
History has shown that these individuals were glaringly mistaken. I agree with that.
He always kind of laughed at the West Coast offense title. He says it really ought to be the Midwest offense because it's just the principles that we started in Cincinnati.
1969, they drafted this strong-arm kid, Greg Cook, from Chillicothe, Ohio. Greg Cook could do things that nobody could do.
Greg Cook was, I believe, the greatest talent to play the position. He was Steve Young, but bigger.
Had he not gotten hurt, I believe could have been one of the all-time great quarterbacks ever.
A shoulder injury suffered on this play eventually ended Greg Cook's career, and it forced Paul Brown and Bill Walsh to devise an offense for Virgil Carter, a quarterback who lacked the arm strength of Cook.
Let me talk to you a minute. Bill, what do you like next here?
It was high percentage throwing, lay the ball off short, let the receiver make the total yardage, the run after the catch.
We began to control the ball through the short pass, always looking for the big play, but going then to the short pass. We won a division championship in Cincinnati with Virgil as our quarterback.
So it was a little nickel and dime football in the beginning, but he had to do that. He goes, that's the only way we could do it. And he took it to another level.
The original stanzas of the West Coast offense that Walsh penned in Cincinnati grew into volumes of poetry in motion in San Francisco.
The short passing game, replicating the efficiency and the security of a running game, that's what changed things. And so defenses couldn't respond.
Montana looking for the quick throw. Throws, complete to right.
The ball was coming out so much faster than it happened in the past in the passing game. The defenses, it did take 15, 20 years to catch up.
I think Bill Walsh was from another planet, to be honest with you. He was so far ahead. He simplified everything for the quarterback. They gave the quarterback options. He knows where his primary, his secondary, his third receiver. So it was very, very simple for the quarterback.
It may have looked easy, but it was anything but for the men who had to execute Walsh's offense.
We talked about my footwork, and he said, look, if you'll just follow the directions and the footwork that goes with each pass pattern, I can tell you the timing for when to deliver the football and to who on your feet. I'm like, what?
So every step counts, the timing of the play itself. Every step by a receiver, certainly every step by the quarterback.
And so I started to learn the footwork of the West Coast offense.
Young down the middle. He makes the catch. Touchdown.
Which told me, by timing, when to throw to a certain guy, drop back, hitch up.
Back to throw. Stepping up, throwing for the end zone. Clark, touchdown.
And he's like, just follow the directions, and you can play quarterback.
Footwork, footwork, footwork.
I'll tell you, the problem with it right now, look at their feet, man.
I still hear it in my sleep.
You just have to keep harping on their feet because they'll get lazy with it.
Turn on the film and go, hey, footwork. You know, this is a 5-step drop. You took like 3 big and a hop. And that's why you feel like you're waiting on them because everything's not ready yet. We put steps in here for a reason. There's a 3-step drop, there's a 5-step drop, 5-step with a hitch, 7-step with a hitch. All this is all timed so that things can open up for you at a certain time.
I remember Bill Walsh talking to me one day, and he goes, Ronnie, look at Joe's feet. They're just beautiful. They're just beautiful.
Pretty, pretty.
I was like, really, Bill?
He's the most graceful, quick-footed, nimble quarterback we've seen in many years. It's almost sensual, his movement.
Graceful, nimble, sensual. No wonder much of the football world saw Walsh's team as less than intimidating.
Coach, how would you describe your football team? Is it a finesse team?
Finesse is not the word for our offense.
It bothered him. I think it bothered him a lot.
For every person that said that we were finesse, he wanted to go punch him in the mouth.
He always talked about delivering that first punch.
One of the battle cries we used was beat him to the punch. Beating people to the punch. I want to hear that in your coaching sequence. During the coaching sequence, I want that to be something they identify with. I want to hear it all year.
When we take that field, that line field, it's just like Marvin Hagler. That's what it's going to be like. We're going to be unloaded on somebody.
Bill created a poster that I helped him with that said, "We will not be out-hit by anyone." And all the players signed it.
He says, and we're going to pound them into submission, and they won't even know it.
He was busting people. He knocked a couple people down, knocked a couple of his own players out of the way.
But we were just tricking people. We were beating people by death of 1,000 paper cuts.
Death by paper cuts is a fitting way for an author to beat an opponent. And it was on paper, with his scripting of plays, that Walsh prepared for his weekly battle.
We'll open the game with this right here.
It was funny because it initially started as the first 10 plays, and it ended up at 25, sometimes 26.
Because in Bill's mind, I can script the whole game if I could get players that would do what I told them to do.
Scripting plays can be even more effective when you claim your coach's headphones don't work at the start of a game.
We knew they scripted plays. Well, we lost the toss in '85, and we knew they were going to get the ball, and then all of a sudden their phones went out. Now, you know, the league mandates you got to put your phones down when the other team's phones go out. So it was just a coincidence that they got these plays scripted. They know what they're going to do, and then their phones go out. We were kind of, I don't want to say caught off guard by that, but we had to make some very quick adjustments. I kind of thought that that was a little bit calculated on their part. Getting ready to play them the next year in the playoff. And I said to Bill, these phones go out again to start the game. I said, I'm going to expose you, okay? He looked at me with a little wink and he says, just a little gamesmanship. And I said, I understand.
Scripted plays or not, Walsh's West Coast offense managed just 3 points in each of those playoff losses in New York, as the Giants and Bill Parcells got the last laugh. The 49ers had won 2 Super Bowls in the early 80s, but the middle of the decade was being dominated by the Big Bad Bears and the Beasts of the East. But the author would have a say on how the history of his football philosophy would be written.